Hello, this is Saino, and welcome to Off the Aisle, Chapter 2, Attributes. Now, attributes are very important as they define your character's strengths and give you the freedom to make the character that you want to make. So as you level up, attribute points are distributed automatically, while others are available for you to place wherever you want. The race that you choose affects how many points are automatically distributed, as well as how many extra points you're able to place yourself. As you can see here, I have 2 points to allocate, and we'll go over what all of these mean and everything like that. So, why don't we start off, this is the character sheet, and we'll go to the equipment tab. You can see here all of our attributes right here at the bottom. Now, the first attribute is strength. Now, strength adds melee damage, and it's useful for offensive fighters because, you know, strength is what they do, that's their damage and everything like that, but defensive fighters can use it as well. Not so much focus on it because their main job is taking damage. Healers and casters, they don't really need strength, so unless you're playing a character that's built for the front lines like a disciple, I would just ignore it. Constitution is the next one, and that adds hit points and resistances. Now, the hit point bonus from Constitution is pretty decent. For example, I have like 57 Constitution, I'm getting 81 hit points. That's just because I'm a healer. If you're a fighter, you'll get about 3 times the amount of Constitution you have. So I'd have 57, I have around like 150 as a fighter. Every 10 points of Constitution gives you 1 point to all of your resistances. So I have 57 points of Constitution, I'm getting 5 to all of my resistances. That's pretty standard for every single class. Dexterity is a very, very big one. It adds chance for melee critical hit, ranged weapon damage, dodging, parrying, chance to completely resist enemy spells, chance to successfully use defensive abilities, and chance of successfully recognizing enemy tactics. The melee critical hit chance is perfect for offensive fighters, and the increased dodge and parry chances work great for defensive fighters. A small chance to completely resist spells is awesome. It doesn't matter which class you are. And it's hard to estimate dexterity's effects since your level, skill, and other variables are used to calculate it, so you just kind of got to keep a look at the tooltip here to see what the effects are. Either way, the critical hit, dodge rate, and the parry effects will probably be the most noticeable of the effects that you get from dexterity. Rangers, you definitely want to max this out, but other offensive fighters should as well, just for the critical hit chance alone. Defensive fighters can enhance their dodging and parrying abilities, and other classes that use range or melee weapons can also benefit a little bit from dexterity. Now on to Vitality. Now, Vitality is a little different in this game. In other games, it's usually like health, you know, for tanks and stuff like that. You really want the Vitality, that's like defense and everything. But here, it's more for healing. Vitality adds increased healing effectiveness, in-combat health regeneration, energy regeneration, and movement speed. Healing effectiveness is the biggest reason to put points into Vitality, so healers should definitely max this out. The in-combat health regeneration gives a slight boost, same for the energy regeneration, but I mean, you're not really going to notice that big of a difference. Fighters shouldn't really bother with Vitality unless you're like an energy-based class like a bard. The movement speed increase is pretty moot, so I wouldn't even bother with it. Intelligence increases spell damage, chance to identify enemy spells and tactics, and detection of hidden enemies, chance to counter spells, and makes it harder for enemies to counter your spells. Intelligence is the main attribute for arcane casters, since high spell damage and countering enemy spells is what casters do best. There should be no hesitation to max this out if you're any type of caster. Healers and fighters won't really benefit from the intelligence unless you have enough offensive spells to really deem it useful. Now, Wisdom increases energy pool, chance of spell critical hit, chance to identify enemy spells and tactics, chance to detect hidden enemies, and chance to counter spells. Wisdom's energy increase is needed for both casters and healers. As, you know, if you're a healer or a caster without energy, you're pretty much useless. Spell critical hit chance and enhanced counter ability, I mean, those are both just useful. And non-magical classes don't really benefit from Wisdom, so if you're a non-magical class, don't even bother. Now we're going to move on to the derived attributes, which are secondary attributes factored from other types of game calculations. So your equipment, your class, your race, and your attributes all factor in to make all these derived attributes. So first one is armor class. Armor class mitigates physical and spell damage. though mostly physical damage. Each class receives a different amount of mitigation from armor class, leaving protective fighters with the most and casters and healers with the lowest. Hit points. Now, hit points are majority based on your class and level. High-level characters will have more than low-level characters, and fighters will have more than healers and casters. That's just how it goes. Endurance is kind of interesting. All characters have 100 endurance, no matter the level or class. It's mainly used for melee attacks and certain special abilities, and it regenerates pretty quickly even in combat. Energy is used for spells and some special abilities. Casters need energy, so do healers, so anything they can improve it with, like wisdom, is a good thing. Defense is your character's ability to evade or mitigate both physical damage and spell damage. Fighters, this is your main derivative attribute, so keep an eye on that. Attack shows your damage per swing with your current weapon. As you can see, my attack is 32 to 44, and my damage per second is 19. So, I mean, I might be doing between 32 to 44 on impact, but 19 damage is a better idea of the damage that I'm doing. Now, ranged, this is identical to the attack rating, as it shows how much damage per shot your current weapon will do. There is no DPS for ranged attacks. Alright, now we're going to move on to the resistances. There are 11 resistances. You have fire, cold, physical, mental, arcane, spiritual, holy, planar, shadow, rampage, and flurry. Now, usually your constitution will add to your resistances. The only ones it does not add to are rampage and flurry. Resistances give you chances to avoid damage, and there's 4 ways that resist does this, so we'll just use fire as an example here. You can fully resist a spell based on fire, so with 10 points of resistance, that's equal to about a 1% chance. Partially resist fire damage based effects with 10 points of resistance equal to about 2% chance. Mitigate some fire spell damage, which is a little more than 2% mitigation for every 10 points of resistance, or a little more than 4% if you partially resist. And you can mitigate fire-based melee damage with 10 points of resist equal to about 1% chance. Here's how it works. I know there's a lot of numbers going on here. The only way resistance would be noticeably useful is if they're above 50. For example, if you have arcane resistance of 20 and you get hit with a spell, you'll only have a 2% chance to resist it completely. If you don't fully resist it, you can still mitigate some of the spell damage. This depends on if you partially resist the spell though. So you have about a 4% chance to partially resist the spell and mitigate about 8% of the damage. But if you fail to partially resist, you still have about a 4% chance to mitigate. So we'll move on to healing focus and damage focus. Now, healing focus and damage focus, they both typically come from equipment. They grant bonuses to either healing or spell damage, with 10 points in either equating to about a 1% bonus. You know, we talk about all these attributes. What really determines attribute? Race or class? Both, actually. Class determines only your starting attributes, while your race affects how points are distributed and how many points you're free to place at level 10. I'm going to go over classes and races in other videos, but I want to give you a quick rundown. So starting at level 10, you'll gain 20 attributes per level. 6 points of these are automatically distributed, 1 to each attribute. That leaves 14 points. Now, if you're a non-human race, like this character is, he's a goblin, 4 more points are automatically distributed to the attributes that race specializes in. Now, this leaves 10 points for me to distribute any way I want. If you're a human, though, then none of the 14 remaining points are distributed. So why would anyone want to be a non-human? Well, non-humans can potentially get a higher total on attribute they specialize in than a human can. So the key is to choose a race that auto-allocates points in an attribute that you need for your class. I'm going to go into this in more detail in the next couple of videos, though, so keep watching.